Hello, this is Gene Irwin, the founder of the 3D Business Launch Model. At this time, we're going to introduce to you a concept called the 3D selling model, so you can understand the benefits of a three-dimensional selling process and apply that to your business. The 3D Business Launch Model, introducing the 3D selling model. The 3D Business Launch Model is the dynamic discovery, review, improvement, and support of academic, physical, and mental challenges which face all of us in the pursuit of providing the best possible products, services, and solutions from the inventor/supplier to the end user. The 3D selling model takes a close look at what we think we know about selling a product, service, or idea, and then looks at those things from a POV, or point of view, of the client, management, and sales. What seems to elude all parties, however, are the unknowns, or the we don't know what we don't know. We're going to teach that process to you this evening. We're going to teach that process to you right now. In this video, you will learn the fundamentals of the 3D selling process and why this is vital information for you, your product or service, and your company. You will also be introduced to these additional concepts of MRST, life skill set, your Bedrock Foundation, and expanding your 3D business launch model. Let me introduce you to a man by the name of Paul J. Meyer, a friend and mentor of mine who passed away several years ago, a great man who affected the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. I'm not kidding. He defined success as the following. Success is the progressive realization of predetermined personal worthwhile goals, by Paul J. Meyer. From the life's work of Paul J. Meyer, the definition of success, as the founder of Success Motivation International and more than 40 companies, some of his greatest concepts and instructions will be shared with you throughout these initiative development videos and through the many different books, DVDs, and training videos we provide our clients. Paul Meyer is considered one of the most influential people in the history of personal achievement industry. His companies have produced more than $2.5 billion in materials translated into 24 different languages in more than 60 countries. In the process of learning how the 3D business launch model works, as well as how to put together the pieces of a very complex puzzle of various companies, various divisions, departments that might be spread out over town, over states, or throughout different countries, here's the question. What happens when the pieces are more complicated and interact with pieces from different departments, different locations, under vastly different conditions? What is our normal reaction going to be? Our normal reaction is to look like this poor fellow, like, oh, that's just too much to even contemplate. But that's what you'll have to do when you're self-employed. You run your own business and develop your own company, whether that's a startup, an acquisition, or an acquisition of a franchise. There are a lot of things you have to consider. Our goal here is to help you wade through these things and make them manageable so that you can dominate your business and your industry. The goal here is to demonstrate to you the three-dimensional cube used as a model is actually 27 cubes. 3 layers of 9 cubes in each layer, 27 cubes. We're going to reduce that down to 1 cube to help you understand a simple formula, but in reality, most businesses, most departments, most companies have multiple things going on at the same time. You need to learn how to get a handle on all of these things and assign different tasks and responsibilities to people that you can trust, or develop into someone that you can trust and believe in. So as I mentioned, each side of the cube shown here is a matrix of 3 by 3 or 9 cubes per level. There are 3 levels, or a total of 27 small cubes. Think of that as 27 different people in your company, or 27 different departments, or maybe even 27 different divisions, each of which has 20 or 30 departments. It can get very complex very quickly, but it all starts with one department, you. You're the person who has to make this work, and we're here to help you to succeed in all that you're trying to accomplish. What management is trying to figure out is how do we take that 27 cubes and boil it down to just maybe that one red cube at the top of the golden pyramid, so we can figure out how to manage this in such a way that we can invest funds and invest people and time and effort into this and eventually come out with a profit. So that's what they're trying to figure out in this group photo showing people around a conference room table trying to understand how do we define it, how do we understand it, how do we make it work for us, and how do we make it work for you. Here's perhaps a simplified picture of what we're trying to accomplish, and that is to take the complex world of 27 different departments and boil it down to one concept and work our way forward from there, okay? Again, we're talking about the 3D selling process, and that's the department we're going to talk about is your sales department, how to understand that, and depends on your product, service, or idea that you're trying to market or service, and that's the goal for this particular video program. Alright, so our management team have kind of figured this out. They're going to just take one cube out of the 27 and only look at that. And that's going to help them simplify their ideas and concerns when it comes to selling a particular product or service or idea. And it's going to look very familiar to those of you who are my clients and those of you that have been studying our videos and training programs. These are designed to help you succeed no matter what your product or service is. Well, how about that? It's come back to something we all know and love. It's called the 3D business launch model. You notice that happens to be a cube with 6 different sides. Whether it's a startup, an acquisition, or a franchise, the concept of 3D selling is the same for every one of them. Now we're going to take the simple cube and break it down side by side so you can understand what's going on in the minds of your client, your suppliers, your management, your customer, as well as yourself. And these are the kinds of things that you need to think about and understand and master and develop in such a way that it becomes second nature to you when you talk to people, whether it's investors, whether it's owners of a company, or whether it's the executives that run a company that you're trying to get their business from, and they want to have you supply the services and products to them they need, but they need to know that you understand their concerns and fears and uncertainties. So that's the whole point of the 3D business launch model, and now that's the whole point of the 3D selling process. So what we've done, we've taken 27 cubes and boiled it down to one cube. Now we're taking that one cube, and for purposes of simplicity, we're going to represent the complex 3D cubes by a single clear plastic cube. This allows us to see all 6 sides of the cube simultaneously. The 3D selling model will then assign point of view or perspective to each of those sides. I'm going to walk you through this process and see if this doesn't make sense to you, so you'll understand who's trying to manage what during your discussion, whether that's with an investor, the owner of your company, or the owner or manager of a company you're trying to get business from. But this is going to make a lot of sense to you, I believe, as we go through the process. There are 6 levels. Each of these levels have different purposes and are seen by different people. We call it point of view. Let's call it a tabletop for now. That's a glass table and has some clouded glass on it so that you can't see the other person's shoes and they can't see yours. But on top of the table, we can all agree what's on top of the table. Both sides see and know the issues, at least on the surface. You see what their concerns are, they see what your concerns are. You have your notes on top of the table along with your notepad. The same thing with your client, prospect, owner, or investor. They've got their questions and concerns they want to get to. Those are the kind of things that all parties see at the same time what they think, and it's important you understand that word, what they think the real issues are. When we look at this side, this is the side that you have your crib notes, your areas of concern, your fears, uncertainties, and doubts. Some of these are private, some of these are public between you and your management, what you're trying to accomplish that you want to do to support this business, your company, or whether you're working for someone else. These are your issues that only you can see. The people on the other side of the table cannot see them, and you understand what they are. They're designed to help you walk your way through the comments and the concerns that you have relative to the product or service idea that you're trying to sell or market to the company, whether that's to an investor, whether that's to the owner of your present company, or whether that's to the owner of the company you're trying to sell a product or service to. These are things that you have to have answered in order for you to understand how you're going to be able to help them. On the right side, number 3, this is what your management wants. These are the concerns that they have relative to what you're trying to sell to that company or whether you're trying to get an investor involved in helping your company grow, these are what your management team says you've got to get these resolved. It's point A, B, C, D, and E. You got to get resolution and confirmation that those 5 or 6 points that they're concerned about get solved along with the issues that you have. That's what your management wants you to accomplish in these meetings. And as part of that process, your management may or may not be with you in that meeting. So you might be the spokesman for 2 or 3 people, or you might be the only person there. It just depends on what the best selling solution or the best negotiating position is. Sometimes we don't have the president or the officer of the company with you simply because they want to have the ability to say no without having to say yes right then and there. By the same token, the people on the other side of the table have what their management wants them to talk about, what they want them to be concerned about, what their priorities are. So you need to understand your management has things that he or she wants you to say and do and accomplish in that meeting. Their management team has things they want to accomplish in the meeting as well. So it's not just your management, but it's their management you need to be aware of. You're not going to see these until the other side brings them up. And you need to be prepared for them. The best way to prepare for those kinds of things is to anticipate what they're going to need or anticipate what they're going to ask you in that meeting. Not only are you going to hear from the person across the table from you in terms of what his or her concerns are, but you're also going to hear that his management or her management has concerns as well. So please be aware of the fact that there's more going on than just what you're seeing on top of the table or what your person across from you is saying. One of the best questions you can ask is, well, in addition to the concerns that you have, what about your management? What is it that they want you to accomplish in this meeting? It's a great question. Now we're coming to the point where he or she on the other side of the table can see their issues and only they can see them. Their management doesn't see them. You can't see them until they bring them up. So, just like you have your own crib notes that you want to keep private to yourself, they have a similar set of questions, concerns, fears, uncertainties, and doubts that they want to keep private until they bring them up. You might be able to ask them questions to bring it out of them. And one great question is that, well, in addition to that, is there anything else that you have on your plate that we probably need to address before we talk about what your management wants? And so, the key here is to learn how to become a master at asking questions and then listen carefully to the answers. Put yourself in their position. It's pretty simple. You want to try and anticipate what they're going to ask on their benefit, what they have to have questions answered so that they can go back to their management and report that they did this, this, and this, and they got concessions on these 2 issues here and so forth. This allows you to put yourself in their shoes. Try to see from their perspective what it is that they need from you. Now we come to that session of the 3-dimensional selling process where everybody fails. Underneath the cube, on a side where management can't see it from either company, you can't see it, and the person across from the table from you cannot see it, is terms, conditions, complex issues, legal issues, supply problems, other issues that come up that nobody can see. In other words, these issues, concerns, and problems are hidden to all. In other words, you don't know what you don't know. And believe it or not, you can actually role play these things out to the point where you can anticipate what it is you don't know, that they don't know that you don't know, or what they know that you don't know. I know it sounds kind of confusing, but basically you're trying to anticipate all the problems that are going to come up in a relationship between you and this particular client, or between you and this investor, or between you and your management. What are their concerns that they're not prepared to address right now that they never thought of? If you bring them up, that you've got a solid answer for, trust me, that's going to elevate your position in their eyes because you've thought ahead of these kind of problems and you're prepared to deal with them. So please be aware, there's going to be things that are hidden to all that you don't know what you don't know. It could be a political problem depending on who's in the White House or what other country you live in. The policies and the laws might change unexpectedly. So here's a summary of all the 6 different areas that you need to be concerned about using our plexiglass clear cube. Let's go through them one more time. Number 1, on top, both see and know the issues. Number 2, on your side, only you can see the issues. Number 3, on the right side is what your management wants. Number 4 is what their management wants. Number 5 is only what they can see the issues. And number 6, underneath, on the bottom, nobody can see. It's hidden through all. You don't know what you don't know. And that's why this whole process is something I developed called the 3D selling process. Makes a little bit of sense now, doesn't it? I want to change gears a little bit now and expand to you the 3D business launch model. We talked about Paul's definition of success, a progressive realization of predetermined personal worthwhile goals. We're going to break some of those up now and help you understand something called the Wheel of Life and the attributes with focus on the following major areas. We're going to look at briefly family goals, spiritual, financial, physical, mental, and social, and briefly cover something called the Wheel of Life. It includes things like romance of your significant other, fun and recreation, career, health, personal development, environment, finance, friends, and family. Here's the point. Let's assume that you drew a circle from 1 to 10, or from 0 to 10 in this case, of how well you have areas covered in your family or spiritual or your financial areas. I always find that my social are pretty low, but some people it's very important for them to have social goals. Me, not so much, but that's not your problem. That's my challenge. So anyway, let's take a look at that. I'm going to show you that little wheel of life here in just a moment, but I want you to consider something. If you take a circle with a point and then a radius and the circle is perfect like a wheel, you'll be able to roll that right along. But if you rate yourself from 0 to 10 and you find you got yourself rated a couple of 3s or 4s on some of those radials, maybe your career is not going where you want it to be. You're going to find out that your round wheel is pretty much more like a back in the days of Stone Age, when your wheels are basically pretty square. So it's kind of fun to try and draw that out, and you'll get a chance to see very quickly, visually, just areas that you might want to improve upon. So here comes that Wheel of Life attributes, so you can start working on your own model. Again, you'll notice in the life skill set, we have on the left finance, romance of significant other, fun and recreation, career development, health, personal development, friends and family, and environment. So these are areas that may or may not be very important to you. The more important they are, then you need to have goals that range from anywhere from the 7 to 10 range. And less important, you're probably in the 3 to 5 range. So these are areas that you can help grow as an individual. And believe it or not, the people you work with also need to understand these things so that they can develop themselves as well as develop people around them. If you're the executive and own the company, these are areas you need to be aware of, because that's how people improve in their own lives, is something called career development, but also personal development. You need to be the role model. Let's help you learn how to do that. All right, we're going to expand the 3D business launch model and give you some more ideas about how we deal with something called accelerated goal development, and MRST. The first question asked when we arrive late for any kind of a ball game usually is something like, who's winning? Why? Because we want to know the score. The score will tell us a little bit more about at that time during the game, whether it's first period or the last 10 minutes of a ball game. You'll know immediately who's winning by simply looking at the score. Well, the same thing applies to goal development. MRST. M stands for measurable. The goal you develop must be measurable. R stands for realistic. The goal must be realistic, at least for you. S means specific. The goal must be specific so that a third party looking at your goal would understand what it is you're trying to do. And finally, T stands for time limit. The goal must have a time limit to ensure action and a deadline. Otherwise, it's basically a marathon, and everybody gets tired of marathons and they just go home. So the goal is give yourself a time limit that's realistic, a goal that's specific and measurable, so that you can be action-oriented to accomplish that goal. If you are not making the type of progress you want and are capable of, it is simply because you do not have clearly defined and written goals. Paul J. Meyer. Now, the man that I admire by the name of Albert Einstein says, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. Isn't that true? I've always wondered about political parties. They say we've got the very best minds working on this problem as we just got into office 3 months ago. But wait a minute. That's exactly the same words that the prior administration said, that they have the best minds that are working on the problems. So if they've got the best minds in the world, then your guys must be either second place or their guys must be second place. I've always been a little confused by who's got the best team. Anyway, you understand the point. You can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. Our friend and wise person, Benjamin Franklin, says, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. So it sounds like if we don't have a goals program, we really don't know where we're going, we don't know where we're going to get there, and we don't know what we're going to accomplish when we do get there. So in other words, by failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. One of my first bosses, a guy I loved that just recently had made changes in his life, this guy's name was Dick, and he said, Gene, you need to plan your work, and then you need to go work your plan. So what Ben Franklin was really saying was, you need to plan your work and then work your plan. Benjamin Franklin went on to say the following statement: without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. Benjamin Franklin. I think that says it all. We'll just leave it at that. We're now going to take a few minutes to expand the 3D business launch model. I want to walk you through several things here on this particular slide. The first one we're going to talk about is your personal and organizational goals. It's important that you establish both personal and organizational goals for yourself, your family, and then your business. But keep in mind, based on this pyramid that you see here, there's something called self-imposed limitations. Sometimes we decide to put stumbling blocks and obstacles in our own path, thinking we're not going to be able to do this company or this business. We're not going to be able to do this because I've never built a company before. Well, don't let that stop you. Neither has anyone else who's ever started a business before, whoever acquired a business or bought a franchise. They've never done that until they've done it the first time. Once they've done it the first time, they go through the areas of rough patches until they figure out how to do it. My objective is to keep you from some of those potholes so that you're not having so many rough times to go through until this thing becomes successful for you. That's my goal. I've done enough of these for the last 35 years that should be no surprise to you that my objective is to shield you from some of these things. On the other hand, you need to go through some of them so you'll have the experience so that the next time you have somebody on staff that says, well, I don't know if I can do that, you can explain to them exactly what they're going to do and how they're going to get through the process. So, believe it or not, your organizational goals, you're going to have some of your subordinates say the following: well, we've never done that before. I don't know that we can do that. Sound familiar? Okay, the next thing is something called 8 Minutes to Success. It's actually a presentation process I've already created for you in a video. I sent it to you as part of our program. The 8 Minutes to Success explains in detail what you've got to go through to make a presentation. It's very self-explanatory. Shouldn't have a problem with it, but if you do, give me a call or send me an email. We'll walk you through it again. The Iceberg Principle is interesting. It comes back to our friend Albert Einstein. If you remember, some of the quotes he had in the past was, he thinks he only uses about 5 or 6% of his total brain power. Or lack of better words, he thinks he's only using less than 10% of his potential. Well, good grief, if he's using less than 10% of his potential, then maybe I'm around 2%. But the point is, most of the people you hired are basically like a bunch of floating icebergs. Most of their talents, potential and abilities are hidden from view, just like an iceberg. 10% is above the water, the other 90% is below the water. My objective in working with you and your people is to push them up a little bit and get another 2 or 3% in performance out of them. You would be amazed at how that would impact your business. If you recall, one of the videos I sent out is something called the slight edge, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. If you can get 1 or 2 more percentage points improvement out of your people, the impact on your company, the impact on their lives will be nothing short of phenomenal. Earlier in this video, we talked about something called the foundation of MERST, or measurable, realistic, specific, and a time limit on goal setting. This applies not only to personal goals, but it also applies to your professional goals and your organizational goals. Those are very important. We haven't talked much about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, other than to tell you that they're just basic psychological needs. We need food, we need shelter, we need water, we need those kind of things taken care of first before we can become something called self-actualization at the very top. So your people need to grow internally. They need to have chances and opportunities to grow professionally. That's where you come as a manager and as a boss and as a company owner. But you can't do it for them. They've got to want to do it themselves. So your goal is to help them become better people. Earlier in this video, we talked about something called the life skill set, and those are the 8 or 9 different areas where everybody goes through something called, we got relationships with family, we have friends, we have social life, we have mental goals and capacities, we have spiritual goals and physical, and things of this nature we can improve upon. That's what the life skill set is. Now I'm going to talk to you about something called Bedrock Foundation. Either develop it or repair it. We're going to talk to you about it for a few minutes, and then we'll conclude this particular video and hope that you found some areas of growth, some areas of questions that you might want to improve upon. Anything I can do to help, I would be glad to do so. You know how to reach me. All right, this is Gene Irwin, the founder of the 3D Business Model, and now expanding the 3D Business Launch Model, also explaining to you the 3D Selling Model process, and we're about to talk to you about the 3D BLM, three-dimensional selling concept, and relative to something called Bedrock Foundation. During the process of the 3D Business Launch Model, we want you to understand something called the Bedrock Foundation. On top of the Bedrock Foundation, which I'll explain in just a moment, there's something called MDR. Underneath that is environment and education. And underneath that is personal and professional foundational concepts. Let's talk about MDR for a moment. MDR stands for minimum daily requirements of your business. Now, when I get closer to some of your larger companies out there and I explain to executive management and the CFOs of this particular company that I'm working with, I'm going to change the MDR from minimum daily requirements to the following. Minimum daily revenue goals. Every man, woman, and child that works in a company, let's hope there aren't too many children, under the age of 16 anyway, everybody involved in that company needs to have personal accountability and responsibility for generating revenue in your company. I don't care what their job title is. They need to understand that they represent your company, your product, and your service, and as such, need to be in a position to impact your business. And they will meet people and through their normal daily lives on Saturdays and Sundays, during the weekend, during the evenings, and they will have an impact on your business. Your goal is to make sure that they're all aligned with not only personal growth, but also professional growth and support of your company and business. That's important. We call it unity, we call it a community, we call it a family. Anyway, let's back to MDR, minimum daily requirements. These are kinds of things that keep your doors open, all right? You reduce the costs, and you increase the sales, you increase the sales margins. Believe it or not, if you look at what happens to these large corporations, I remember not many years ago, AT&T had their best quarter ever. It's in the billions in terms of their sales, AT&T. Within 2 weeks after that best quarter ever, you know what they did? They let go 20,000 employees. Now, that seems incongruent. Why would you have your best quarter ever and you suddenly let go 20,000 employees? You want to know why? Because the people who get paid at the very top are concerned about the very bottom. In other words, they're concerned about the bottom right-hand corner of a profit and loss statement. And the fastest way to impact any profit and loss statement, what no one called an income statement, is to let people go. There is such an overhead on somebody's employment in your company. You cannot imagine. It's nearly double their salary. Their salary is, let's call it $40,000 a year, but the overhead to keep that person on board in terms of things like Social Security, Medicare, workers' comp, and supporting them for insurance and all these kinds of things adds another $40,000 to the bottom line in terms of cost. But if you remove that person, that immediately goes away. It's not a cost of sales, it's an immediate impact on the bottom right-hand corner of the business, saves roughly $80,000 per employee. I'm not kidding. And so they got rid of 20,000 people, and suddenly the stock shot up because their margins were better, their earnings per share was better, and the stock took off like everybody expected it to, because now we have a leaner, meaner company. And that makes sense for some companies, it makes no sense for others. So it's important to understand that letting people go is sometimes a double-edged sword. Anyway, I didn't mean to get on a rant, but there you go. All right, so the environment education, the whole point of having that is to deal with something called what is your environment that your business is currently in, and what education do you need to provide your people to support current political situations in your market, in your industry, that might affect the growth of your company. And finally, personal, professional, foundational concepts. When we're talking about the Bedrock Foundation, I'm talking about you personally. You're the owner, you're the founder, you're the company head. What are your foundational concepts? What's your education? What's your background? What's your experience? Where are your weaknesses? Where are your strengths? Just like a SWOT program, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We're going to find them out. We're going to shore up your foundation, and that'll help shore up the rest of your company and make you the most successful possible company and individual that you can be. That's my job. That's my goal. This is Gene Irwin, the founder of the 3D Business Launch Model, explaining to you the 3D selling process, and along with something called the Bedrock Foundation Growth. Hope you're having a great day. We'll talk to you soon.